I'll be reading uh, Incoming Insecurity, Chapter 7 of IGen by Twangy. Um, I'll be annotating in the book. No, I'll read you my annotations as I'm writing them. So let's get started. Darnell, 20, chuckles a little while I asked him if he will need to find a job that will help him pay off his college student loans. Absolutely, he says with a laugh that reminds me of Eddie Murphy's. Friendly and ironic at the same time, Darnell is a junior majoring in business at a state university near Atlanta. He grew up in a mid sized town near the Georgia Florida line and attended a private high school that gave him the opportunity to get an internship at a bank. When I asked him how he decided to major in business, he says, I felt like I'd uh, I felt like I'd be able to find a job. I didn't want to major in something and then not get a job in the field that I studied. I asked if he always wanted to go into business. At one point, I did want to be an actor, but that's a really competitive field and it's not a guarantee that you'll get a job, so I had to put that away, he said. When I met 18-year-old Haley for lunch in San Diego, one of the first things she tells me is that she is an artist and an actress, rattling off the titles of the plays and musicals she had performed in community theater in high school. She and a friend have been working on writing a video game for 2 years. Creative endeavors are clearly her passion. Are you going to pursue art? Anyway, firstly, Darnell, 20 years old. I don't think Darnell himself was like, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people do that, but I feel like Darnell was probably told a couple times in his life that that route, the artistic, arty route, wasn't something he should put all his eggs into. Are you going to pursue art or acting as a career? I asked. She says no. um, she said, I wanted to go to art school to learn animation, but my parents were like, you should probably pick something a little more practical. And I get it. It's very, very competitive. And if you're not incredible and amazing and already know people, then you're not going to be successful. So I decided second best thing, I want to be a forensic psychologist. She's still working on her video game and still draws, but these things will be hobbies instead of career. 19-year-old college sophomore Ahmed, who's from Cincinnati, Ohio, decided to major in accounting and can tell you exactly why. Job security is really good for accountants. He says you are almost never the one on the cutting block in downsizing and reconstructing because you are more privy to key operational data that cannot be easily replaced. IGeners are practical, forward looking, and safe, a far cry from the you can be anything and follow your dream millennials. With managers focusing on millennial employees in the last decades, little time has been spent understanding what might motivate iGeners in their careers. That will soon change. iGeners already make up the majority of traditional age college graduates and will soon dominate the pool of entry level talent. Given the key differences between iGeners and millennials, the strategies that leaders have been using to recruit and retain young employees may no longer work. The same is true for marketing to iGeners. With marketing with two iGeners with a decidedly different psychological profile. Selling to iGeners varies considerably from selling to millennials. Business and managers need to take note. A new generation is arriving on your doorstep, and its members might not be what you expected. The best part of a job. It's the day after New Year's when I arrive at my friend's house just outside Los Angeles. Her parents are visiting for the holidays and they clatter pots and pans in the kitchen while my friend and I sit in the living room with her son Leo, 14, and daughter Julia, 16. Julia and Leo attended a private high school, a fair distance from their home, and Julia uses her newly acquired driver's license to drive them back and forth to school. They're both quiet and introspective, But I finally get them talking when I ask what they want out of a job when they get older. A job where I can make money, enough money. It doesn't have to be too much, Julia says. I'd like to enjoy my job. I'd like to just not hate it. Wait. I'd like to enjoy my job, Leo says, and I'd like to just not hate it, counter Julia. I'd like to have a job that wouldn't take over my life and would pay enough money. I wouldn't want a job where I'd have to work so many hours like a lawyer, she continues. They both say they would rank money first for what they wanted out of a job. Yeah, money makes the world go round, sadly. I do think that certain things should be free: food, water, shelter. But for things that are not necessary for life, money makes the world go round. And I can't be happy if I don't. You can be happy and not have money, but the things that make up a lot of things, experiences, items, you need money for that. I find it hilarious though. I have this whole thing. Maybe it's just me that thinks money can buy happiness, but anyway. It's a different view than the common perceptions of young workers. The current trope is that millennials want jobs that are interesting and inherently rewarding. Today's young employees, it's assumed, will leave unless they get a lot of enjoyment out of their jobs. The data over time, however, paint a much more practical picture of IGeners and even of millennials. Compared to previous generations at the same age, slightly fewer IGen and late millennials are focused on intrinsic rewards, such as a job that is interesting, where you can learn new things and where you can see the results of what you do. Like Julia, many IGeners just want not to hate their jobs. I also, oh, actually, I've never had a job. I worked very hard in school to get to a place where I didn't have to work during college. The other big story is the decline in the importance of the social attributes of a job. Decline in the social attributes of a job. What does that mean? Such as making friends at work. You can't trust people at work. They are not your friends. Sorry. You can't trust people at work. Um, you can't trust people at work. Most people, most people will sell you out for a paid day off. Sorry, yeah. And having a job where you can interact with lots of people. I'm not a people person. I really would like a job where I have to interact with no people. IGeners are less focused on this, just as they interact less with their friends in person during their leisure time. They are less interested in face to face social interactions at work. This is likely a surprise to many generational consultants who draw from one time studies who assume that millennials and IGeners are more interested in the social aspects of work. However, young in young employees' interest in social activities might be more a function of their age than their generation. Unmarried and without children, young people have more time and more need for social activities, but when compared to previous generations at the same age, IGeners are less interested in making friends at work. As you should be. You cannot trust people. Overall, the things that many boomers and IXers enjoy the most about their jobs, interesting work, friends, are just not as important to IGeners. They just want the job. We should all be less interested in jobs that are interesting or encourage creativity because they don't pay anything. That's why you see so many people my age, $100,000 in debt and working at a Starbucks, wrote Jordan 23. IGeners' practical focus also appears in work life balance. The idea that work should not crowd out the rest of life. When my colleagues and I analyzed these data back in 2006, the importance of leisure values was the largest generational difference. Millennials were significantly more likely than boomers to say they wanted jobs that provided more vacation time, an easy pace, and little supervision, and that left a lot of time for other things in their lives. IGeners have backed off those requests somewhat, returning the desire for work-life balance to where it was in the early 90s, perhaps because they grew up during the Great Recessions. IGeners are more realistic about work and its demands. About work and its demands. To that point, I feel like if I have a 9 to 9, let's say I was a teacher, sorry, but let's say if I was a teacher, if I worked from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., I'm only working 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'm not working any. I'm not taking it home. I'm not taking assignments. None of that home. What I can grade during, while I'm at work for my planning period or something, whatever, is what I'm gonna do. I'm not taking any work home because no, I'm not doing that. You can't take work home. That's what gets people tired and quit. Taking work home. Taking work home makes people more likely to quit, more likely to resent their job, I refuse to take a job home. IGeners might also be reversing one of the most striking trends in young people's work attitude, their declining belief that work will be central to their lives. Millennials just didn't believe work was going to be as important to them as boomers did. They wanted to focus more on other things in their lives. IGeners have turned that around, returning work centrality to the levels of Gen Xers in the 1990s, though that's still considerably lower than boomers' work centrality in the 1970s. Disagreeing that work is nothing more than making a living. However, a similar trend, though, here, IGeners have arrested the downward trend but not improved it. Like Julia, many IGeners don't want to have jobs that take over my life. What about work ethic? Boomer managers often complain that their millennial employees aren't as focused on work as they were. But maybe managers have always thought that about their young charges. After all, just about every manager wants his or her employees to focus more on work. What are you talking about focus more on work? I'm working at a McDonald's. I'm working at Jack in the Box, Starbucks. I ain't gotta focus. This ain't no focused job. I'm not saving nobody's life. This is just making coffees. Putting sandwiches together. Shut up. Focus more on work. And just about every other adult has exaggerated the virtues of their younger selves in 2016. In an article in Forbes made the bold statement that there was no evidence for generational difference in work ethic. However, it named a few smaller studies, including one that could not separate age from generation, another with no generational comparison group at all, and one about the hours business students expect to work, not about the hours they would like to work. Those are not great data to determine whether there is a generational difference in work ethic. Ethic of the work of the ethic. I feel like I had more time but then my phone paused. I'm sorry. In fact, there is clear evidence for a generational shift in work ethic, and it validates managers' perceptions. Millennials' work ethic was lower than boomers, and Gen Xers was at their age. Fewer were willing to work overtime. Fewer wanted to work if they had enough money. Fewer wanted to work overtime. If money. More said that not wanting to work hard might prevent them from getting the job they want. Yes. But also, I feel like the overtime thing. Now, this may be a personal thing in my group. I don't know if it's a generational thing, but when someone says something about like when a friend says, "Oh, my job called me. I'm supposed to be off today." My first reaction isn't like, "Oh, go ahead, get you an extra shift." I'm saying, "Don't take that extra shift. You're supposed to be off today. You're off today." Tell them to go find somebody else to do it because that job don't care about you. You can work all the overtime they want you to or they need you to, and you'll still be the first person fired when they need to make cuts. So don't stress yourself out going back to that job when you on your off day. Remember, this is based on what young people say about themselves and not others' judgments. As high school seniors in 2000s, nearly 40% of millennials said they didn't want to work that hard. An opinion embraced by only 25% of boomers, and fewer than half definitely agreed that they would be willing to work overtime to do a good job. I'm not working overtime. No overtime. If my schedule says 11 to 7, then only 11 to 7. I'm not staying over. I refuse. An opinion embraced by only in fewer than half definitely agreed that okay, but there might be relief around the corner for managers. Also, again, this is probably just a me thing, but like an example, if I'm working 11 to 7 at a job and something happens or we get like an influx of customers near like 6:30, 6:40, I'm still leaving at 7. I'm still leaving at 7. Anyway. But there might be relief around the corner for managers. The IGeners just arriving on their doorstep have a more substantial work ethic. 55% of high school seniors, agree that they are willing to work overtime, up from 44% in 2004. Fewer IGeners said that they want to stop working if they had enough money. However, IGeners have continued the millennial trend towards saying they don't want to work too hard. Apparently, IGeners know that they have to work overtime. No, but they believe that many of the jobs they'd want would require too much effort. It's just too hard to succeed today, they seem to be saying. This attitude may begin with the pressure IGeners feel to get a college degree. When I asked my students how their lives differed from their parents, most mentioned the necessity of a college degree. Many of their parents were immigrants who had worked at low-level jobs but had still been able to buy houses and provide for their families. Today, my students say that they have to get a college education to get the same things that their parents got with a high school diploma or less. My generation is stressed beyond belief because of college. When you graduate from high school, you are pushed to go into college, get your master's, and then have this awesome job, wrote Jasmine, 21. My father's generation was different. He was born in the 70s, and despite never going to college, he had a great paying job that is not a reality for my generation. You are not even guaranteed a job after going to college. And once we graduate, we are in debt up to our ears. It's true that Jasmine's statements have a twinge of entitlement. What do you mean I'm not guaranteed a job? But her comments also reveal an underlying exhaustion. She feels she needs to run twice as fast to get half as much. My students seem envious of their uneducated parents who could get good jobs without having to slog through 4 or more expensive years of college. College should be free. Truly, honestly. If they're going to make it if jobs are continuously, which they probably are going to make college degrees a necessity to get a job, college should be free. It's extremely weird that it's not free, but okay. Anyway, they have a point. The wages of Americans with just a high school education declined by 13% between 1990 and 2003, making a college education more crucial for staying middle class. At the same time, college has become more expensive due to cutbacks in state funds for education and other factors. College tuition has skyrocketed, forcing many students to take out loans. The average student graduating in 2016 carried $37,000 in debt upon graduation, up from $22,000 in 2005 and $9,000 in 1993. IGeners were caught in a bind. They need to get a college education to get ahead, but they have to take out hefty student loans to pay for it. No wonder they are exhausted and just want a job, any job that can pay off their loans. A place to work. Anyway, some observers have suggested that companies might have a hard time recruiting IGen and young millennials because they all want to get to be their own bosses and start their own companies. A report by the advertising firm Sparks Honey included that entrepreneurship is in IGen's DNA because it found that more high school students, as opposed to college students, want to start a business someday. But this could be a function of age. High school students may have always been more optimistic about owning their own businesses than college students are, not to mention that some of the true entrepreneurs might have left college. Nevertheless, many experts believe that the same entrepreneur spirit is ascending among millennials. Millennials are realizing that starting a big company, even if it crashes and burns, teaches them more in 2 years than sitting in a cubicle for 20. The management professor told Forbes, while they know their chances of creating another Facebook are low, they do think it's fairly easy to create a cool startup. Truffle based his comments on a Bentley University survey finding that 67% of young people want to start their own businesses, but noticed that the survey sampled only one generation at one time. There is no comparison group. Maybe boomers and iGeners were just as likely and even more likely to want to be entrepreneurs when they were young. As it turns out, iGeners are actually less likely to want their own business than boomers and iGeners were at the same age, continuing a trend started by millennials. Just as they are cautious about driving, drinking, and dating, iGeners are cautious about going into business for themselves. Entering college, students show the same trend. In 2016, only 37% said becoming successful in their own business was important, down to from 50 in 1984. So compared to Gen X, college students, iGeners are less likely to be drawn to entrepreneurship. These beliefs are affecting actual behavior. A Wall Street Journalist analysis on found that only 3.6% of households headed by adults younger than 30 owned at least part of a private company in 2013, down from 10.6 in 1999. All the talk about the young generation being attracted to art turns out to be just that, talk. Why the decline in entrepreneurship? Starting your own business is inherently risky, and as we saw in Chapter 6, risk is an IGen no-no. A stable job means secure income, being able to buy the things we want, and feeling safe, says Kayla, blah, blah. Kayla, 22, who is a week from graduating with her degree in nursing. To her, stability does not include starting your own business. We saw lots of businesses failing in the last decade or so. She says, I don't want to be living out on the streets, and neither does anyone else. iGeners are also less drawn to having jobs in large corporations, but more interested in millennials, where an industry that might perceive as more stable, particularly the military. The end of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan may have something to do with that. They also express more interest in joining the police force, even though there are potential physically dangerous jobs. They provide a steady paycheck with few layoffs. Overall, iGeners take a more neutral stance on various workplace. Sis, I might become a firefighter. Who knows? If this college thing doesn't work out, chef, firefighter. Who knows? Well-liked industries lower than boomers did in rating, less popular industries than boomers did. Apparently, iGeners see these very different work settings as more similar than previous generations did. They are less likely to rate them high, but also less likely to rate them low. They don't seem to care as much about where they will work. They just want a job. At least some of them do. At least some of them do. Some of them bow, 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 wow, wow. Okay. It's 8:08 now. I started at like 7:30. It says 7:35. I read. Let's see. So sorry. I read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pages. And I'll probably continue to read after I do some other homework. And that'll be it. Thank you.